Well, there's a familiar proverb you've surely heard, which goes, you can't live with them and you can't live without them. Most often you hear it about personal relationship, but tonight we're going to use it to describe the relationship between the United States and China. No question, China is a full-time challenging nation to live with for all sorts of reasons that we're going to get into. But they're more a part of the United States than most people really know, including me. There's an economic codependence because they make things, a whole lot of things, and they make them a lot cheaper than if we tried to produce them all here. Kind of easy to understand since they don't pay their people a decent salary for working. They also hold a good deal of our debt. And you know, we've got a lot of U.S. government debt. But they've also been buying up our land, our buildings, even private homes and apartments. Of course, it's hard to stop anyone from buying what's for sale, but on another level, it's disturbing to know just how much of America they now own, especially when you consider that when you dig into it, they don't really have our best interest in mind. Did you know that there is a Bank of China branch on 6th Avenue in New York and another one just a couple of miles away in Chinatown? Branches in Chicago and Los Angeles. Another one called the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China has 13 branches spread across the United States. And then there's the China Construction Bank and the Agricultural Bank of China and the China Merchants Bank, just to name a few more. If you're not banking with the Chinese yet, you're still likely to be telling them a whole lot about yourself anyway. Nearly 1/3 of the country, that's over 100 million Americans, use TikTok at least once a month. It's a real addiction for some people. Oh, it's a fun app maybe for kids. They love it. And the data that you share on TikTok, guess where it resides? With the Chinese Communist government. And the more PC way to describe it is a quote. Marxist, Leninist, one-party socialist republic. Yep, can't live with them. Can't, apparently, live without them. And what about drugs? The good ones that your doctor prescribes, but there's also the ones like fentanyl that can kill you. 6% of the prescribed drugs that we use right here in America come from China. And we learned that during COVID, in which they also maybe should say developed those drugs, along with hundreds of millions of paper masks that they sold to us here. And then there are the high-flying spy balloons. Oh, I'm not talking about the ones in Macy's Day Parade. I'm talking about the ones that flew in over Montana, and they never told us they were coming. What we do see constantly is the labels on all the stuff at the department stores, toy stores, automotive repair shops. Oh yeah, you can get big TVs, computers, printers, and clothes, and you can bet most of it came from China. Why spend more if you don't have to? Well, I know a little about what's going on, but I sure don't have to answer to what we should do. So I brought someone on tonight who will. Gordon Chang is joining us now. Gordon, it's great to have you here on Huckabee today, and we've got a lot to discuss, but there's something I want to get right into that I didn't even mention at the top of the program. It was a recent Wall Street Journal headline. It says America is getting ready for space warfare. Pentagon officials open up about the potential threats as China's presence in orbit grows and Russia is showing interest in gear that can destroy satellites. I've got enough trouble just trying to stay safe here on the ground. Let's talk about China's presence in orbit. What do they got up their sleeve?
Well, they have anti-satellite weapons up their sleeve, and they intend to take down our satellites in the first moments of a war. And they can do that in a number of different ways. So, for instance, they've got satellites that can bump into our satellites. They've got a space station that could actually grab our satellites and throw them out of orbit. They've got lasers. They've got just about everything. You know, the United States is a leader in space. And if you go back a decade ago, the theory in Washington was, well, look, we shouldn't try to defend our weapons because if we do that, the Chinese and the Russians will then weaponize space. We wanted to entice them into good behavior, but that was foolish because the Chinese and Russians just used that time to develop their weapons in space, and now we're behind in terms of defending our satellites.
Gordon, I remember people made fun of Ronald Reagan back in the 1980s, and they said that he was coming up with this crazy stuff called Star Wars, and what he was discussing was making sure that we were prepared for what might be a weaponized space situation. Looks like we're there. So maybe people laughing at Ronald Reagan 40 years ago shouldn't have been laughing so hard.
Well, definitely not. And you look at this just across the board, Governor. For instance, the United States was the first to have hypersonic flight. We then sort of abandoned it, and now the Chinese and Russians are well ahead of us, at least a half decade. And so Ronald Reagan was right. You need to be strong. You need to be able to protect yourself. And if you do that, then you don't have to fight. But right now, we're on the brink of war because the Chinese and the Russians are arrogant and they think they can push around.
We've seen Russia move into Ukraine. It appears that China is doing a little saber rattling to its neighbor Taiwan. They've always wanted to absorb it into the People's Republic of China. I myself, I'm going to be in Taipei in a couple of weeks, so I'm very interested in just how big of a threat and the timing of such a threat to the island of Taiwan.
Well, timing is we've got to be prepared for anything at any time. China right now is waging 3 proxy wars, one in Ukraine, one in North Africa, and the other in Israel and Gaza. And right now, Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, can't stop talking about war. They're preparing for it. They talk about Taiwan. Right now, the biggest flashpoint is the South China Sea in those Philippine shoals, Second Thomas Shoal, Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Whitsun Reef. China looks like it is going to destabilize its region as well as destabilizing others. This is a critical moment, Governor. And, Taiwan is one of the primary targets.
So much to talk about. Gordon, we hope to have you back on very soon. Thank you very much for joining us. The economy is uncertain. You never know whether your money's worth as much today as it was yesterday. It's one of the reasons I buy gold from American Hartford Gold. American Hartford Gold has earned a 5-star rating and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. Be sure to tell them Mike Huckabee sent you. They'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first qualifying order. Call 844-417-1010 or text Mike to 998899. You'll be glad you did business with American Hartford Gold. Hey, Mike Huckabee here. Listen, if you love your mom, apple pie, and being conservative, you ought to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and click the like button and show all the leftists out there that conservatives are thriving and patriotism is far from dead. Am I pandering too much? No way. I'm just getting started.